Hey, Sean, Gerald Celente, how are you?
Mr. Celente, very well, sir. How are you? You hanging in there?
Oh, very good, thanks. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, things are great.
Okay, good. Well, you've kept a chipper attitude actually throughout all this, which I think is really amazing, because I know that if $100,000 or $2 or $3 or $4 or $500,000 of my money got stolen, I would be apoplectic.
Well, I'm doing my best I can to go after them, so I'm using that anger and directing it toward them rather than going down with it,
Yeah, well, I really appreciate what you're doing. You're giving a voice to the rest of us, who have not yet had all of our money stolen, but it sure appears like that's the way it's going to go for the rest of us. So I want to take this as an opportunity, the next 20 minutes or so, to sound the red alert alarm for those with the ears to hear. Your personal experience with the MF Global debacle and the CME, which has completely breached its fiduciary responsibility in this MF Global event, is the canary in the coal mine for the rest of us to take direct personal action in order to protect ourselves. Now, Gerald, before we begin, I want to start with a quote from Ann Barnhart, who closed her commodities brokerage firm 2 weeks ago as a result of the MF Global collapse. And with credit to James Puplava at financialsense.com for his interview with her, here's the quote. For those who may not fully appreciate the gravity of this has never ever happened before. Nothing even close to this has ever happened before. And it is the function of the mercantile itself. The reason why the exchange exists is that they stand in the middle of every transaction and they act as the de facto counterparty to every single transaction. Gerald, what kind of update can you give us?
Well, the only update is, where's John Corzine, the guy who brought this whole thing down? And the only update that I can tell you is how I've gotten shafted. I buy futures with the intent of delivery, and that's what I did back in April. I bought gold futures to take delivery now, December, at $1,433 an ounce. When MF Global went bankrupt, the Gambinos, the Bananos, the Dutch Schultz, we'll call them other names, the CME group, the trustees, the courts. What they did is they took my accounts and everyone else's and they transferred them over to other brokers. And what they did, for example, when it went bankrupt on October 31st, perfect Halloween, they pegged gold at the price of that day. So it was only a figment of my imagination. And all of the invoices that I've gotten since that time of April, that I paid $1,433 an ounce. It's actually $1,765 an ounce. So now, not only do they steal all my money out of my account, they changed my contract deal to not $1,433 but $1,765. Now, I'm responsible for contracts at $1,765 an ounce, which I paid $1,433 for. And so what happened was, time came, I'm stuck with these accounts, gold doesn't go back over $1,765, and I lose everything underneath that. So not only do they steal my money, now they burden me with contracts that I never agreed to. And there's no recourse. The recourse is through the courts. Who are the courts? When are people going to grow up? There's some political hack. They're Republican, Democratic political hack. This is the only country in the world where we have a court system that's controlled by the mafia, the Republicans and the Democrats. They don't do this in other civilized countries. There's no recourse. Who do they give my money to? A trustee. Hey, trustee this. Trustee. What, some flunky that's making a lot of money off the deal? They're making this crap up as they go along. And I'm going public with this because I don't care who you're with. You think you're safe with the Merrill Lynch mob, the Smith-Barney boys, the Charlie Schwab group, Infidelity, Wachovia, remember them? They went away. How about Wells Fargo with those wonderful little stagecoaches? Yeah, stagecoach and highway robbery. Your money isn't safe unless you have it in your pocket, Jack, because they're going to steal it from you any way they can. It's a criminal operation. Follow the names. John Corzine. Hey, wasn't he the senator in New Jersey? Yeah, sure. And wasn't he the governor after that? That's right. But where did he come from before that? Oh, he was the CEO of Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs, boy, that name sounds funny. Heard that name before. It wasn't Robert Rubin, the guy that was the Treasury Secretary under Clinton, that dismantled all the regulations that prevented banks to become these criminal operations like the Glass-Steagall Act? Didn't that happen under the reign of the Clinton administration and people like Robert Rubin? Where was Robert Rubin from? Goldman Sachs. Hey, who's the guy that was supposed to be watching that groups like the MF Global scam didn't happen? We have a Commodities Future Commission, don't we? A CFTC. Yeah. Who heads that? Oh, Gary Gensler. Gary Gensler. Didn't he work with Corzine at Goldman Sachs? I mean, come on. Who's the guy that was that Frankenstein freak? That SOB. What was his name under Bush, the Treasury Secretary? Henry, I'm going to take all your money, Paulson, and give it to my buddies because they're too big to fail. Henry Paulson, where was he from? Son of a gun. Wasn't he the CEO of Goldman Sachs? Boy, oh boy, the Rothschilds would be jealous to see the scam that's going on. Follow it around the world. Draghi, the ECB head. Three-card Monty, the new premier of Italy. All Goldman Sachs, Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg cats. Same thing with the new flunky over there over in Greece, Papademos. Papademos, huh? Yeah. It's a load of crap. And everybody's getting screwed, and they don't have the self-respect to stand up. Instead, they're like little children clapping and cheering their politicians on and wearing stupid buttons and waiting online to say how great they are. Everybody's become a slave to the system. Follow the money. The merger of state and corporate powers, by definition, is fascism. And fascism has come to America.
Gerald, you couldn't be more right about that. And I want to, without beating this to death, I want to give you another quote from Ann Barnhart, because in this interview with Puplava, I've never heard anybody go on a 30-minute rant in a more eloquent way and without holding back. And she says, quote, "We are now living in a lawless, Marxist, communist, usurped country. What used to be a representative republic is no more. This is no longer a nation of laws. This has been transformed into a nation of men." Now, Gerald, just to put a finer point on that, the indefinite detention bill passed on Thursday night with a vote of 93-7. The Senate codified into law the power for the U.S. military to indefinitely detain an American citizen with no charge, no trial, and no oversight whatsoever with the passage of S. 1867, the National Defense Authorization Act. Gerald, my point is that not only are they going to gut this country, I think that there's been a military coup. How can I say this, Gerald? I think the Pentagon itself is being turned around on the American people. And with the passage of this bill, what recourse do we possibly have?
Well, you make a good point, but the military's taken over the country a long time ago. And again, I only disagree with Barnhart that she calls it Marxist communist. It's fascist. I mean, can't you see it?
Yeah.
Again, the merger of state and corporate powers. So on the bill, let's make it clear. It was Eisenhower. You know, 5-star general, supreme commander of the Allied forces in Europe, 2-term president, Republican at that, warns the people that the military-industrial complex is taking over the country.
Right.
And it never stopped. It only kept getting worse.
Right.
And that's what we have. It's a takeover. As I said, you know, there's becoming a point where I'm saying to myself, I'm going to leave this place. You know, I don't want to live in a dictatorship. I don't want to be. Look, you know, the guy like me who's out there and calling these guys out all the time. You know, I don't want to get my brains blown out for a cause.
No, I know.
It's really clear.
Yeah, no,
and that's the way it looks right now.
Yeah, it's very courageous. What you're doing is courageous, but you know what? All it takes for evil to succeed and flourish is for good men and women to do nothing. And there's hundreds of millions of people in this country, 300 million people, about 95% of which are brain dead and asleep and will never, ever stand up until this country is burning to the ground. Now, Gerald, the point on this whole thing is that what they're doing is called the Cloward Piven strategy. It's to go in and destroy and collapse the entire economy, everything, and then rebuild a new socialist fascist state out of the burning rubble of this destruction. This cannot be more plain for people to see. Anybody who's paying attention, the MF Global collapse is the absolute last straw to me. I mean, what would you suggest the little guy do? Anybody who hasn't had their money stolen yet, what are we to do if we have 401ks, IRAs, Ameritrade accounts, Scottrade accounts? Do we liquidate? Do we take the penalty? Do we do whatever we need to do in the next 30 days to make this happen? Or
well, I'm not permitted to provide financial advice. I only tell people what I do. I'm taking my money out of my IRA and out of my retirement, and I'm taking the penalty.
Thanks so much for watching Part 1. Don't miss Part 2. Click here.